Are there other comments or questions?
Bill, you talked a couple of times, you said between yourself and Adrian, you have interesting conversations. Can you disclose some of those interesting conversations? Sounds like controversy that I'd love to hear about the debate between you.
It really wasn't adversarial. It's just, I mean, we
my
had
curiosity, because you've mentioned interesting conversations 2 or 3 times.
Every conversation with Adrian is interesting.
Very good.
Let's go without one of those interesting conversations.
Well, we talked last week, we had a conference call sort of in preparation, and we started talking about Netflix, and people may disagree with me, but my contention is, A, it's not a platform because it basically is the Google circa 1998. You do one thing on it. There aren't really open APIs. People aren't building apps on top of Netflix. But with regard to Hastings' recent foibles and the splitting the service, the raising the prices, alerting people to what they were doing, it's like a gym membership, right? You sign up in January, and then you just forget about it, and all of a sudden you may look at your credit card and go, oh, gosh, I pay $20 a month for the gym, I don't even go. But I would argue that in an age when things are really converging and there isn't maybe the need to have something that's best of breed because something could probably be good enough. Something has to be great in order for you to go, you know what, I know Apple has a service or Google has a service or Amazon is inventing one, but I like Netflix and I have this history there, so I don't want to maintain separate queues and have 2 different bills and go, wait, is this on my streaming queue, Quickster, or is this on my regular one? Again, that's just my opinion on it, but other people have different opinions about what Hastings ought to be doing or did wrong, or the reason that there was this fury, which when you think about it, what did they lose last quarter? 800,000 subscribers on a base of what, 26 million? Right. So you're talking about what, a 3% hit? And what did Hastings lose? How many billions of dollars? It was out of whack, but Adrian's point is extremely well taken, and it really, I mean, she was such a great sounding board. I told her she's made, if she whether she likes it or not, a friend for life, because when she does more books, I'm saying, you're going to get my opinion whether you like it or not. That's just what you signed up for. And by the way, what's your favorite bottle of wine? So I have strong opinions about why Netflix has faltered, but I know I don't want to speak for Adrian. I know you don't share them all.
Well, actually, my opinion is very consistent with your opinion on that as to why they faltered. I'm not sure I disagreed with you on that one.
Okay.
I think we had more about whether B2B. I think we're agreeing to disagree. No, I do think that Netflix faltered and they created their own Prairie Dog event. And that probably where they faltered is they didn't build out that ecosystem enough. And so now you look and you could say, well, I could go over to Amazon now, pay Prime, and I can download some movies. Maybe it's not quite as many movies, but it starts to become a viable alternative in terms of another platform that you could jump to. But
it raises an interesting question about how the market values a platform, even though you don't want to call them that. Given 3%, I agree with you, that was not that much. But the story itself was enough to take a strong, and then he did it twice. You know, he split them and then he brought them back together.
Yeah,
so the valuation, the volatility and the stock
much.
valuation was very interesting, I thought.
I think to some extent the 40% capitalization drop is more reflective of the ability of a CEO or a C-suite to listen. And I think that if you rescinded the breakup into two business models in 2 or 3 days, the capitalization would have recovered quickly. Whether or not they would have come back or not is somewhat irrelevant because it's only 3% of 24 million, 26 million. The issue is playing out in every sector right now, which is, we were talking about this on coming over here, which is Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, said, we're entitled to charge something to our customers.
Yeah.
It's not a nominal charge. I mean, it's a nominal charge in the scheme of what you spend in terms of telecommunications and data communications, etc. And yet we, whether we're business executives in our right, we organized and said no. If you carry this forward, if you implement this, the credit unions will be the beneficiaries. You won't be.
I think it's a cultural thing, though. I think Netflix has a challenge in its culture, right? Because I think that if they had listened to their customers before they had announced it, right? And they got 24 million customers they could have asked, right? They could have figured out that answer before they did it, right? I think And if you look at their online service, how much has it changed in the last so many years? It hasn't really. How much have they delighted you? It's the same thing. They made it easy to get a movie. And that's been it for years. They haven't gone outside their way. Their platform is not that social. It's not really, I guess it's a little bit mobile. Okay, give them that. But they're not really going out of their way to go delight their users. I mean, B of A, same thing with the whole ATM charge thing, or the debit card charge thing. Like, you have users you can ask. If your culture is truly about delighting the user, then you don't have to rescind the decision, because that decision was already made before you announced it. Like, you've killed it off because you actually pay attention to your customers. Like Apple, how many times have they had to rescind things? Once in a great while. I just think it's a cultural thing, and I don't think they have that culture.
But Apple's a great example, because think about what Jobs did. Was it 97 with the iMac and didn't have a disk drive?
Yeah.
And people were irate, but he says, you're not going to need one. So he was in a position to say, I know what's best. Whereas with Hastings,
yeah.
Right? I mean, say what you want. If he had said, look, I know there's going to be a fallout, but this is the way to go. He didn't have the ability to do that. And that's why I think we talked before about Facebook not being the first social network, and everyone talks about first mover advantage. I think it's a key point. There is no one right secret to build a platform. One of the things I'm most proud of in the book is that there isn't a checklist. I'm not smart enough to say, do these 10 things and be next Google. Right? Because things apply differently. Amazon, Bezos, his mantra back in 95, 96, 97, get big fast, right? Pro forma profits. People wanted him arrested. Get out of here. You are the worst thing. Stockholders screaming. Now he looks like a genius, right? So he was all about getting big fast, because he knew that once you had those economies of scale and those virtual barriers of entry, he'll be in a position that he was in now, and he was right. Versus, look at what Facebook did. They didn't want to be the next Friendster. They know, Adrian's absolutely right. People are inherently impatient. Who remembers Friendster waiting 2, 3, 4 minutes for a page to load? The concept of Friendster was great. There's a fabulous book by David Kirkpatrick that I read in researching for this book called The Facebook Effect. And he talks about one of Zuckerberg's obsessions with speed.
Yeah.
Right? Google spends, they literally are figuring out ways to shave nanoseconds off of search. So time absolutely matters. So it's not simply about being first, although it can help. There isn't necessarily a recipe. That's why I think you need to really be mindful of that. Anyone who says, we'll just do these 5 things off a platform,
I think you can almost look at some of the companies that are struggling today and ask, how strong is their ecosystem? How strong? Because you look at Netflix, and exactly, they didn't build out their ecosystem. They tried to stick with one thing, and when it came time, the switching costs were not that great from a time and attention perspective for the customer. Yes, they'd have to go back. You have to go look at your subscription. Now I contrast that to B of A. Only 11% of customers change banks every year. How many of you have changed banks in the last year? Well, you had to because you moved, right?
Pain in the ass.
Had to, yes. People typically don't change banks, and the reason is that they are so embedded into your day. And frankly, I'd rather go spend time with my kids than worry about changing banks. Okay, yes, so I'll get, in fact, you get these offers I get these offers from Chase for, gee, we'll give you $125 if you'll move over to our bank. Oh, lovely, but what's my time worth in terms of trying to make that work? So unless you're moving states or you have some main reason, people don't. And that is why companies like B of A are getting away. And what's kind of a travesty in this situation, when you look at the telcos, you look at the insurance companies, and a lot of them are in the time on autopilot segment. They almost know that they can get away with this. And I don't advocate poor customer service. I think that because what happens is when you do get a prairie dog event, you may cross that threshold. Your customers may cross that threshold and leave you at some point, because it'll build up over time. They may not leave you the first time they're upset, but they will. It'll add up into their currency account with their relationship with you. So, and that's why customers explode too. I mean, it's just, I can only take this one more time. And it's because it's been building up, and you keep saying, well, I don't really want to change my Comcast right now. Just a quick thing, the triple plays that are put out by the Comcast, they love that, because what they're doing is the time and attention it takes to move 3 services versus 1 service. It's a way that they've built their platform out and are locking you in more into their service. So And that's a strategy that's done there. My only comment is take care of your customers while you're at it. Don't take advantage of that.
And I think that one of the most important things in building a platform is not to forget that customer service matters. You still, in the book, I joke, anyone ever see that show 30 Rock? Mm-hmm. Right? Liz Lemon's boyfriend, the guy sells beepers because he thinks, and I'm quoting him, technology is cyclical. Right? They're coming back, right? So if it's such it's very scene. And if you don't have a product or service that people want, or if you have bad customer service, then I don't care about your platform and your ecosystem. So I think, Sharik, you're absolutely right in kind of holding your partners up to high standards, because they are a representation of your company. And if, look, I've been on enough contentious ERP projects to know that sometimes it's the client's fault, right? But if you're, where there's smoke, where there's fire, if you're consistently getting bad feedback about a consultant or a partner, you got to kick them out of your ecosystem, because ultimately they're hurting you. The switching costs, to your point, aren't nearly what they were 10, 15 years ago.
That's right.